Today we are going to learn about Nicobobinus by Terry Jones. This story is about the extraordinary boy Nicobobinus and his best friend Rosie. So let's start this story. Keep your book with you to understand it better. This is the story of the most extraordinary child who ever stuck his tongue out at the Prime Minister. His name was Nicobobinus. He lived a long time ago in a city called Venice, and he could do anything. Here, extraordinary means unique. So, in this passage, we come to know that Nicobobinus is the main character of this story, and he was a very truthful person who lived in Venice long time ago, and he has the power of doing any kinds of work of himself. Of course, not everybody knew he could do anything. In fact, only his best friend Rosie knew, and nobody took any notice of anything Rosie said because she was always having wild ideas anyway. So now we know that the best friend of Nicobobinus was Rosie, and she knew everything about Nicobobinus and his supernatural powers. Nobody took notice of Rosie because she was very wild or extreme eccentric by nature. Now the next para. One day, for example, Rosie said to Nicobobinus, let's pull up every single weed of your doorstep. Weed means unwanted plants. Let's not, said Nicobobinus, which is what Rosie thought he would say. In that case, replied Rosie, let's discover the land of dragons. Don't be daft. Daft means fool, said Nicobobinus. How can we do that? Because you can do anything, said Rosie. So the next morning, just as it was getting light, Rosie threw little pebbles up Nicobobinus's shutters. Nicobobinus was still half asleep when he looked out. Rosie had wide ideas. As for example, Rosie said to Nicobobinus to throw away all the unwanted plants on his doorstep. Nicobobinus said that no, I am not interested in it. Next, Rosie said that let's go for discovering land of dragons. And here Nicobobinus said, are you a fool, Rosie? How can we do that? Next, Rosie says, you can do anything, I know. So, as it was said by Rosie in the next morning, in the early dawn, he came in front of Nicobobinus's window and threw pebbles and hit these pebbles on the window of Nicobobinus to call him out. Nicobobinus was still half asleep and he just opened the window and looked out of it. Next para. What's the matter, Rosie? He asked. Sss, whispered Rosie. I have got the buns and the lemonade. Buns means a bread roll of various shapes and flavorings. Lemonade means a juice made from lemon juice and sweetened water. What for? Asked Nicobobinus. Supplies for the road, whispered Rosie. Where are we going? Asked Nicobobinus. We are going to find the land of dragons, whispered Rosie. Don't you remember? Finally, Nicobobinus was eager to know the arrival of Rosie in the early morning. Rosie said that, stop, don't talk loudly. I have brought the sweet bread rolls and the lemonade. Nicobobinus said, why? What is the need of these things? Next, Nicobobinus's question made Rosie puzzled and she said that we are going to the land of the dragons, so we need supplies for the road and that's why it's brought here. Have you forgotten about your promise that you have made in the previous day? Rosie asked this to Nicobobinus. Now the next para. Oh, I thought you might have forgotten about that, said Nicobobinus. No fear, said Rosie. It's one of the best ideas you have ever had. What about the wedding? Said Nicobobinus. Come on, said Rosie. Now the explanation. So here Nicobobinus said that he was thinking that probably Rosie had forgotten about that. But Rosie was eager to discover the land of the dragons. So she was forcing Nicobobinus to go with her. But Nicobobinus asked, what about the wedding on the doorstep? Rosie finally said that, don't think about that. Come with me, hurry up. Now the next para. So they set off through the early morning town. When they got to the end of the narrow street where they lived, they met a night watchman who said, "Where are you going at this hour?" "We are going to look for the land of the dragon," said Nicobobinus. Finally, they started their journey in the early morning. When they were at the end of this city, the night watchman tried to catch them, and he asked both of them, where were they going in this early morning? Nicobobina said that they were going to discover the land of the dragons. Next para. "You can't do that at this time of the morning," said the night watchman. But before he could grab them, Rosie and Nicobobinus were sprinting away as fast as they could. Here, grab means a quick and sudden clutch. Sprinting away means run at full speed, even at a short distance. Here the night watchman tried to catch both of them quickly, but Rosie and Nicobobinus ran at a full speed to get away from this night watchman. Next para. "And they did not stop running until they had crossed 3 bridges and tripped over a dog that was lying asleep under a garden wall." Tripped over means stumbled over. Rosie's bottle of lemonade smashed against the wall and the dog leaped to its feet, barking as if it had thought dog's doomsday had arrived. They did not stop them until they had crossed 3 long bridges. Suddenly they stumbled over a dog which was sleeping under a garden wall. They were running very fast, and so Rosie's lemonade bottle was crushed or completely broken against this wall. The dog was awakened suddenly, and it started barking very loudly and thought that probably someone has gone there to kill him. Doomsday means end of life. For a moment, they were sure it was going to bite them, but then it noticed the 2 buns that had rolled into the gutter, and it wolfed them down, barked "thank you," and ran off to tell its friends. They thought that the dog is going to bite them, but when the dog found that there were 2 sweet buns on the gutter, it got excited, and instead of biting Rosie and Nicobobinus, it just got down and jumped down on the buns, and it took it on its mouth and ran away to share these buns with its friends. Next para. "I wonder if I could pick a few of those," said Nicobobinus, gazing up at an apple tree on the other side of the garden wall. Gazing means look steadily. "Of course you can," said Rosie. "Stand on my shoulders." While going forward, Nicobobinus found an apple tree which was full of apples. Nicobobinus looked at this steadily and said to Rosie, he would be feeling very happy if he would have some of these apples. Then Rosie said that yes, you can get some apples. So you have to get on my shoulders and then you can have a catch of some of these apples. So Nicobobina stood on Rosie's shoulders and climbed onto the wall, but the tree was farther away than he thought, and as he reached out he lost his balance and fell with a crash down into the most magnificent garden he had ever been in. Magnificent means impressively beautiful. Nicobobina stood on Rosie's shoulders and tried to get those apples, but the apples were far away from his reach. As a result, he stood on the wall and tried to get those apples. Suddenly, he lost his balance and fell down into the garden. And the garden was impressively beautiful he had ever seen in his life. Next para. Nicobobinus looked back up at the high wall, and there was no way he could climb back. "What I am going to do?" he yelled. Yell means give a loud and sharp cry. You will think of something, Rosie yelled back, crossing her fingers very hard. Nicobobinus looked at the high wall, but found no way out of this garden. Finally, he shouted and asked Roddy what to do there. Rosie said that he could think of a better plan to get out of this problem. Now, the next para. Oi, said a voice behind Nicobobinus. Nicobobinus did not stop to look who it was. He ran straight into a tree. Got you, said the voice, and Nicobobinus felt 5 thick fingers on his neck. Ow, said Nicobobinus. Suddenly, someone caught Nicobobinus from his back. Nicobobinus did not look behind and started running until he came across a tree. Suddenly, Nicobobinus found that 5 thick fingers had caught hold him on his neck. Nicobobinus felt the pain and shouted, I have been waiting for you, said the voice, and Nicobobinus felt 5 more thick fingers round his wrist. But Nicobobinus, instead of trying to run away, doubled himself up and went backwards as fast as he could, so the man's legs were knocked from under him and he landed in a pile of leaves. Finally, Nicobobinus felt that someone has caught him from his behind with his 2 hands. So Nicobobinus don't run forward. He moved backward and just made the man fell on his knees. And the man had fallen down on a pile of leaves. Are you all right? Called Rosie, but she did not hear any reply except for the man who growled, Just you wait, both of you. Oh dear, said Rosie. Sounds like trouble. And she was right. Rosie could hear these noises, so she asked from behind the order whether Nicobobinus is alright or not. But she could hear only an unknown voice of a man who shouted at anger and said that he would get hold both Nicobobinus and Rosie and he would punish them. Then Rosie found that some trouble is coming up near that, and she was right that there was a trouble coming up. With this, the chapter 1 ends. Chapter 2 is coming soon, students.